Blindspot Season 3, Episode 2, Enemy Bag of Tricks. This episode I thought was actually really good because it kind of forced, at least in one regard, it forced some of the characters to reveal certain secrets. Mostly, through Jane and Weller, with her having gone on some of these secret missions. She interacts with this guy who's like, kind of like the face of everything bad that's going on in the episode. And so, of course, that kind of brings up the confrontation between Jane and Weller, where it's like, oh, what did you do all this time? And her being this different person, the vegan stuff is nothing. It's like, I like being vegan now. That's nothing. Then it's like, oh, so you were doing like crazy super secret spy missions while you were on the run and had a bounty on your head for like $10 million or whatever the crazy amount was. So it was interesting watching them kind of deal with that. And by the end, Jane does reveal, all the extra money that she had. It ultimately ended up being no big deal, at least so far. I'm sure there will be something else that comes up from a previous mission, because that's kind of Roman's whole thing about the, the penance and everything. But at this point, she's kind of revealed it. She takes the money out. She still had a bunch of passports, so she went a lot of different places. So I'm sure there are like a ton of missions this season that are going to relate to her, and that's once again the whole point, or at least part of the point, because we do get to see Roman do some other stuff, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the episode. But he wants to kind of mess with his sister, so a lot of this stuff is going to connect to her. We saw quite a few passports, when she was putting them up in the vent. So there's definitely some more missions that are going to be coming up that are going to have an effect on her. We have the team kind of operating again, and Patterson is like freaking out. She like is hating on Stewart this whole episode, and unfortunately she's not able to really apologize to him because he ends up dying by the end of this episode. And I can't help but wonder if that has something to do with him being super close to that tattoo that he was looking into. Like the whole episode, he's like, like I just have this hunch, like something's there, and he kept getting closer and closer to it. And I knew, of course, when Patterson was calling him on the phone and was like going to his house, I was like, oh, he's definitely dead, because she was like calling him and stuff, and it was like, I know you haven't answered and all that. I was like, he's probably dead. And then especially when she was like, I'm at your house and stuff, I was like, oh, he's definitely dead now, because it's the end of the episode and she went to his house and he hasn't been answering his phone. He's dead. So of course we find out that he was actually killed. They kind of seem to ransack the place, so either he was looking into this, and unless they're going to say that there's like another spy within the office, I think he was looking into things at home as well, and maybe he was doing a little too much online and things kind of got traced back to him. So somebody knew that he was getting a little too close with whatever this tattoo is, which I believe Patterson mentioned it was like a molecular tattoo or something. That's specifically what she said. So I think he got a little bit too close to the actual answer, and unfortunately he didn't utilize like the security of the office to continue his search, because of course every time he was there, Patterson was yelling at him. So I feel like he was kind of digging into it at home, and things not being as secure, people were able to pick up on the fact that he was looking into it and getting close to whatever the answer was going to end up being. So it sucked to see him die, but I don't really know what that means as far as like, the whole point of the episode was like, okay, the team is trying to kind of rebuild. Like everyone's in new positions. You have Reed as the leader of the team. Weller is just kind of brought back in. Obviously you have Zapata, who's still with the CIA, and then Jane, who's just like, MIA for a long time. So, they're trying to come back together as this team, and it works, of course, by the end. And that's kind of one of the good things about this episode, is everyone kind of dealing with some of the issues that they were having. Reed and Zapata, they kind of confronted that a little bit in the first episode, but they kind of officially bury the hatchet. And we also find out that Reed has a girlfriend who he lives with. It's not just like she was there that night and they were on the day. It was like they live together. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. We'll see kind of where that goes. And, Zapata is kind of brought in for dinner, which I'm not going to lie, it kind of sucked, because I was like, everything that they kind of had in the last season, I was like, are they going to end up finally getting together, like officially? Or, how in the world is this stuff truly going to play out? And, that ended up not being the case. I also have to wonder, I didn't consider this before, but I do have to wonder if they had an actual relationship during, like, the time skip. They haven't brought it up or anything like that, but I don't know. The way they were acting seemed like they were still just friends that were fighting. But I don't know, maybe they tried it for like a split second, and then that was like right before Zapata went to the CIA or something like that, so they didn't really even have time to get that close. But I don't know, it was like, man, like the whole season, them kind of just being best friends and stuff, and then there were points for sure where it built up, and then it just kind of, it calms down a little bit. That seems to just be how that relationship works for them. So I don't know. I do have to wonder if that was the case, but the way they were acting, even though it seemed awkward that she was coming in, that's kind of what made me wonder if they actually had that relationship at some point. And it was like, oh, he has a new girlfriend, and we're already in this weird position because we kind of hated each other because I went to the CIA, stuff like that. So it did make me wonder where she was kind of fighting against it so hard to have dinner with him and his new girlfriend, and it was just like, why is it that big of a deal that they don't do that? So I feel like they may have kind of dived into a more serious relationship in between seasons that we just haven't seen yet, and maybe we'll talk about that a little later on. But they kind of have their resolution at the end. Jane and Waller have their resolution. Like I said, Patterson tries to have hers, but unfortunately Stewart is killed. And I am curious how that's going to affect kind of the rest of the season. Like, is it just going to go back to her being there by herself? I thought what they were going to do with Rich, I thought he was going to be a main character. I didn't know that was like specifically just the first episode. I thought he was legitimately there for like a certain amount of time. It was almost like his probation. He had to be there or something, but it was just like that one mission, unfortunately, because it would have just been really funny. But maybe they will end up bringing him back in. He is referenced, so it does make me wonder. It's like, okay, he was in the first one, they referenced him this time. Maybe they will end up bringing him back in, because of course they didn't have Stewart. He's legitimately the only other person that has ever had any true name. I'm sure she's, like, Patterson has named other people in the last 2 seasons, but Stewart is legitimately the only other character that has ever been in that lab that has had any relevance. Everyone else is just in the background, no names. Maybe a name every once in a while is thrown out there, but Stewart is the only person that has ever had any relevance in that lab outside of Patterson. So I don't know if she's just going to go back to doing her thing, or if they will bring Rich in, because of course that's going to bring up that story as to what in the world they did with each other in between seasons as well. So I don't know if that's how things are going to play out, but of course that's going to come up at some point. So maybe they will bring Rich in just because he's probably more familiar with the new system and all that stuff, or unless Patterson just kind of ends up changing it. But love the way everything was playing out. The main mission itself was pretty cool, and Roman, of course, being a part of it, forcing Weller to be like, hey, you're going to help me or I'll reveal this secret, which doesn't really come up, unfortunately. Just another mystery there. So, Weller still has his secret from Jane. And then we have like the whole team going through, and they end up searching this giant field, which I love that scene where they were going through and they're like following the hunch, and it was like, see, like, we're just like out in the field, everyone's kind of bored, it's like, nothing is happening here. And then, of course, a satellite comes crashing down like a comet. It's like, oh, well, there we are, just in the nick of time. And they end up in like this crazy firefight with basically like a bunch of mercenaries who were just trying to shoot them up. They get the black box, they take off, and it's like, all right, well, we need to figure out what in the world is going on. So the DOD comes in, and we meet these 2 characters, one of which we find out the woman ends up being the villain towards the end of the episode. And so it's just a huge disaster with that, like, a whole situation all the way through. It's like, we don't know what's going on. Jane has to deal, with this guy. They end up finding them because he talks so much about how he likes burgers. That was legitimately how they found him, which I thought was, like, the funniest way to actually, like, get a lead on a case. Was a few years ago, he would shut up about how much he freaking loved this specific burger place. It's like, that has to be the place where they're at. And they break in, it's like, yep, that's where they were. And it's like, wow, he got busted because he liked burgers a lot. And I just thought that was super funny. But they end up catching everybody, and then that kind of screws the deal up. And we find out that it was really the people that like set up the whole situation. They were just late, and that's the only reason they even got busted. Like, they should have been gone already. So it was just really crappy timing because the people got there late. And so, of course, this satellite going down allows for people to hack into basically the shield, which allows for people to, allows for the country to be alerted to, I forgot, she did explain what every single acronym was. I think international something missiles. I knew IBM's. And ballistic missile, whatever the I was. I don't think it was just international ballistic missile. But yeah, it was like, all right, well, if the shield goes down, we'll have no way of knowing what's going to happen. And it's like, oh, well, it just so happens that North Korea seems to be priming some artillery, maybe in our direction. So it's like, all right, we need to make sure that we kind of get on top of this. So of course they figure out everything that's going on. It's like, all right, who had access to this and that? They go after the guy. Then they find out that it was actually the woman. She kills the guards that were protecting her. She takes the black box. She's supposed to meet some people at a museum, and naturally, villains being villains, she meets them, and then they just end up killing her and leaving her inside the little auditorium section, or the little little theater thing. So of course she gets killed off, and they have to continue, fighting through this museum. And it's like, all right, the satellites are going down piece by piece until it gets down to 2. And fortunately, they're able to stop it. They made a great joke. After everything was done, Reed was like, "My comms went out, did we get nuked?" I thought that was actually a really funny line. So ultimately, they solved the problem, and for the most part, everyone's able to kind of work through their issues in this episode. Naturally, we still have some secrets. We don't know what's going on with Zapata and that special tattoo that she's trying to hide from the team. We still don't know what happened with Weller. I think Roman said it was in Paris. I can't really remember, but whatever that secret is, he has it, of course. Patterson still has her secret. So even though we had some of the personal, team issues kind of worked out, and, the team as a whole was able to come together again in this episode, there's still a lot up in the air that's probably going to tear them apart all over again. So looking forward to that. But the other half of this story was actually Roman. And man, it was so dark. I was like, the whole episode, I was like, man, this is actually pretty cool. We get to see Roman almost being human. Like, he gets to have a friend, somebody kind of helping him out through this process. And then the whole episode, he was just tricking the dude and he poisoned him. And I was like, he's just so insanely evil. And the whole reason they had like this crazy like little buddy moment, he uses the exact words that this guy's friend used before he killed himself, so that he knew that that's how he could end up talking to the guy. They end up having a bunch of drinks and stuff, and he poisons the guy so he can get him to pretty much reveal anything that he needs to as far as his life and mother's maiden name, this and that. Which of course, because it's TV, he's like, that's everything I need to get into all your accounts. Like, not everybody just uses their pet's name and mom's maiden name. It's like, that's dumb, actually. Like, if that's what you do, then I'm sorry, but that's stupid. Like, you need to come up with some fake stuff, not just, oh, that's your mom's last name, which I found on Facebook. It was like, come on, like, that's not going to happen all the time. He just happened to be insanely fortunate that this dude happened to use either his first pet's name, or he used his mom's maiden name and the street he lived on or something. So, he's talking with this guy, chatting him up and everything, and he gets to that point where he mentioned, having the millions of dollars. And at first, I thought Roman was surprised by that. And I was like, oh no, he's going to like turn on this dude to kill him because he can use that money. And it was like, oh, he didn't care about this guy at all. Those fake laughing, fake conversations. He knew he had this money, and he tricked him, and he poisoned him. And he just has him like frozen in place in this chair. It was kind of messed up. And so he kills the guy, he takes his glasses, and then the whole reason he was there chatting him up and everything was because he needed to get his personality. Like, he needed to get like the voice and the way that he spoke. And it's just like, wow, that's like some evil genius type stuff where he spent hours and hours with this guy learning all his secrets. And then it's like, all right, you are dead. I need to perfect your voice. And it was just like, wow, this is nuts. Him like talking to himself in the mirror. I was like, this is like some true psychopath stuff. But it was a good scene. It was definitely a great scene. And of course, he gets all the money transferred to him. And of course, we don't know what this big plan is, but millions upon millions of dollars. So that was nuts. That was just nuts. It was like a crazy scene at the end with that reveal, because I was like, oh man, I thought he was having a genuine good moment. I was like, nope, it's just a Roman moment where he's being evil and he kills this guy. So definitely great. This is one of those scenes where I'm like, I hope they don't defeat Roman, at least not kill him at the end of this season, because he does stuff like this, and it's like, as dark as that is, it's very entertaining to watch with this character, because it's like, I never know really what to expect from Roman, especially now that he's the main villain. It's just like, I don't know where things are going. So I hope, honestly, that he isn't actually killed off, because he's the type of villain that he could be the main villain now and then still come back at the end of the series as the main, final villain or something. But it's just nuts. It's like, man, this is absolutely insane watching him in this episode, of him, setting everything up to have the team argue with each other and the satellites. So there's just so much to it. There's just a lot of stuff to it. So it's just really crazy. But I really enjoyed this episode. Definitely excited for the next one. Of course, want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And I would love to know what you guys think is going to happen with them following the tattoo that Stuart was involved in. Exactly what happened to him and why you think he got killed. Like I said, I think it's pretty simple considering how attached he was to it at the lab. It totally makes sense. He was looking stuff up at home, and that's how somebody figured out he was looking into it and getting too close, so they just killed him. I think that's a simple theory. I think, if it's different, then that's fine, but I don't think that's absolutely insane as a theory. But I would love to know what you guys think is going to come out of that tattoo, and how that also is going to change the dynamic. I mean, technically, he was a brand new character that didn't have that much relevance, but like I said, him having a name was leagues beyond anyone else ever inside that lab outside of Patterson. So, excuse me, that still has some sort of effect. So I would love to know your theories on, how Stewart's death is going to kind of impact the rest of the team, mostly because, of course, it'll impact Patterson, which, as the tech person, that definitely impacts the team when they're out in the field. So I would just love to know your theories on how it's going to impact the team and what might come of this actual tattoo, like that it was so important that Stewart needed to be killed for. So I'd love to know your theories there. And like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.